if we then look at who is the most successful innovation country and innovation ecosystem on the planet, well, it has to be Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very, very clear reason why that is. One, it's the peculiarity of a whole set of variables which came together. So post-Second World War, DARPA, before becoming DARPA, was called ARPA. There was the chief scientist called Vannevar Bush, who famously wrote many letters to Roosevelt back in the day, worried about the German innovation, how quickly the Germans were innovating. So the seed of understanding that innovation was fundamental went all the way back, even before the end of the Second World War. As soon as Second World War finished, a set of elements came together. You had the presence of Stanford Research Institute, Stanford University, together with what would become the new DARPA, together with fantastic weather, all of these elements which people take for granted. Favorable taxation, great place to grow your family. These are very important elements, because looking at other places around the world, without naming any countries or any particular client, there have been instances, and people will no doubt have seen them on the papers, of certain countries even dedicating hundreds of billions of dollars to innovate, and they were never able to do so. And that's because they look at it in a very, very narrow perspective. That's one point. Don't take into account on all these other variables, because if you speak to an engineer from Google, one of the reasons that they don't want to leave San Francisco area, traditionally, looking at during the Cold War period, it had to do with a whole set of circumstances. They're happy for the family to live there. He's at, or she is at, immediate and proximity to universities, greatest university in the world, to industries that are able to create spin-offs, support from the government. So DARPA is not the only one, but it's one of the key drivers. And so that's one aspect that renders it absolutely unique. And in fact, the US tried to replicate the Silicon Valley model on the Boston route on the East Coast, where if one were to just look at it just on paper, it would make complete sense. Of course, you're going to be able to recreate it, because you've got Harvard, you have, you've got proximity also of the political establishment. One would think it's fantastic, it's perfect, and it failed. It failed because it didn't have all of the variables that the Silicon Valley geography had. It's almost borrowing the concept of Prisoners of Geographies by Frank Copian. There is an element of that, which is often neglected. The second one is they had a very, very clear vision of what they wanted to do. So we tend to use, in not just Europe, but everywhere around the world, you hear politicians, but even businessmen, scientists themselves, many of them, they describe research and development with innovation, and innovation is research and development, as if they were completely interchangeable. They're not. And it's not just a taxonomy issue. It's not being picky or finicky about precise meaning of words, because research and development is a tool within an innovation strategy. And if you don't even know what the tool is and what strategy belongs to, you can't plan ahead. And for many innovation strategies, you're looking at a 1, 3, 5, 15 or moonshot 15 plus year potential. That's the second aspect. So that Silicon Valley has very clear what Israel had and has very clear what Europe is lacking. Here is where, if I may even be a bit critical of even Draghi himself when he talked about the creation of DARPA. My suggestion is that it was probably the wrong thing to say, because the creation of a DARPA is not in itself gonna create the lightning in the jar or create the innovation. There's a whole set of aspects. The first thing we need to understand is what type of innovation strategy are we going to undertake? So the state, DARPA, for instance, is very moonshot. That means, and in fact, DARPA's motto is, if it's not impossible, it's not a DARPA problem. That mission statement encapsulates moonshot innovation.